Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels. I'm welcoming back writer Erica Schultz. It's been a little while. I think the last time you were on, you were making your Moon Knight jacket. Um, so it's been what,
Long time.
2 years? Yeah, something like that. Something like that. So thanks for coming back. Uh, you, you made me read a Spawn comic. I haven't read a Spawn comic in like 25 years,
I'm
but I
sorry.
saw that you. No, don't apologize because it's fantastic. But that's where I have to start is like you started playing in sandboxes that I don't generally jump into, but I like to read your stuff. So I jumped into them at least somewhat, and it's nice to have you back to be able to talk about that. So how are things? What have you been up to other
Uh,
than Spawn and X-Men and a little Daredevil?
Spawn, X-Men, Vampirella.
Oh, that's
And
right.
today's Wednesday, and Vampirella's out today.
Okay. I'm
So a
gonna
little bit of everything.
I can't say that you'd be making me jump into that sandbox because Christopher Priest already did that.
Yeah,
Though he didn't do it like immediately. It was like 10
Christopher's great
issues
now.
in. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I love Christopher Priest, but it was like 10 issues in when I had a friend go, "You're gonna think this is crazy, but you need to be reading Vampirella right now."
yeah,
No, no,
exactly.
I know, but you need to be reading Vampirella right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like a lot of characters, especially a lot of like the old kind of pulpy characters, she gets sort of thrown to the side as like just being this like TNA kind of book.
Right.
But I think one of the great things about, you know, Christopher writing her is there's so much more substance. One of the runs that I absolutely love is um, Nancy Collins, her run on Vampirella when she was writing Vampirella. And it's probably the only, I think it's the only Vampirella that I actually own, was when Nancy was writing, God Save the Queen, was
Okay.
I have the trade paperback and it's like 8 issues for that arc. And it introduced Tristan and the whole thing with, Madame Evely and, the Cabal and stuff like that, which may have, been in other issues and such, but sort of the incarnations that were in the work that Nancy had written. And Patrick, I would butcher the last name if I said it, did a great job on the art.
First, my internet connection is running slow because I was pulling up to look at it and the page isn't coming through.
Yeah.
So one day I'll say what the Patrick is. But yeah, like the last time I talked to you, I think we were talking about more um creator owned ish stuff because it was Deadly Bouquet and we went back to M5 and whatnot. And now you're working
M3,
in
not M5.
M3. I'm sorry.
It's
I,
okay.
I I was just I'm reading Slow Horses. MI5, now you're good. You got me. I already misspelled your name once in an email and went, "Oh my God, I already hit send."
I mean, honestly, it's fine. A lot of people misspell my name. I've gotten it misspelled on commissions and such. It's just,
I know, but like
it's okay.
at the school I teach at, we actually like really prioritize like pronouncing kids' names appropriately.
Mhm.
So it's just ingrained in me that like it's a big deal. And then I feel bad. But yeah, thank you for being okay with you. Um, so what's it like getting to play in other people's sandboxes right now? I
I
mean,
mean, well, I've been doing it for a long time between,
I know that too.
I've been doing a lot of, I guess what you would call like IP or licensed work and such. I mean, it's always sort of a balancing act because you have a story that you want to tell. You have to make sure that that is going to fit within the larger universe that the publisher is dealing with. Especially if it is a crossover, you have to make sure that the story that you're telling isn't going to conflict with any other story that anybody else is telling within the same crossover. So I
Right.
mean, it's a lot of sort of like weaving things together. It's like sort of like braiding things together and such. But I mean, it depends. Every publisher sort of has their own level of helicopter parent. You know, some have the drone that literally follows you with every draft, and then others are sort of like, all right, let me peek in every once in a while just to make sure that
Yeah.
you're still on the right track. Um, so it's just sort of like it depends on what character you're working on as well, because sometimes you have a character that um nobody really cares about. It's kind of almost like a throwaway. When I was working on Hollow's Eve with Mike Dowling back in
It was a
2020,
fun book.
thank you. Nobody gave a damn about that character because she was kind of just this throwaway character. And then when we were like 3 issues in, and it was getting these like crazy great reviews. Editorial stepped in, was like, "Oh, we need to do this," and I was like, "You do realize the reason why it's getting good reviews is because you're leaving Mike and I alone.
Right.
That's why it's getting good reviews." And it always comes back to that old adage of like, success has many parents, but failure's an orphan.
Right.
And that's kind of why sometimes I see, especially in TV shows, season 1 will be like phenomenal. And then season 2, everybody has to poke their hands in and things start getting convoluted and they start getting like overwritten and, characters start behaving uncharacteristically. And then you're just kind of like, well, if you just left it be, if you took a chance on it, let the creative team cook without sort of like running into the kitchen in the middle and deciding that you're going to throw whatever in there. So, it depends on the character. I mean, like with Rogue being so integral to the Uncanny book that Gail is writing, I really had to make sure that the story that we told was going to be able to live on its own, but also wasn't going to mess up uh, all of the characterization as well as all of the storyline and plot that Gail had already been laying out with David Marquez, Luciano Vecchio. Tons of great artists have worked with Gail on that book. Um, so I had to make sure, like, okay, well, this is the 5 issues that we're doing. This is where we sort of see the character going. Um, there is going to be, the big reveal at the end. Now that Gail is aware of it, she can start seeding that in her scripts. And the artist can start making sort of little visual Easter eggs and references to that to be able to make sure that both stories are coalescing.
I've always been curious and seeing that you were like working on X books and similarly working on Spawn books that work all in the same universe and like intertwine some. Always wondered how the cross seeding goes on. I know that there are occasional like summit conferences or whatever, but are you in contact with the other writers? Does it all go through editorial? Um, how do you guys play together, I guess is what I'm asking.
It depends. So for Spawn, I'm currently working on Gunslinger Spawn, and Jimmy Palmiotti is writing Deadly Tales of Gunslinger. And so Jimmy and I were at a convention together a couple of months ago, and we had like a whole conversation about where the story that he's working on has sort of started and his plan for where it's going, and then um, ways that we can sort of pay off things in his book or pay off things in the Gunslinger that Carlo Barberi and I are working on. And it's a matter of like, do you seed it before? Do you seed it after? Is it this sort of like sorry, hold on one second. The cat is gonna
No
look.
problem.
She shouldn't. Get away
I
from
totally understand cats.
I like just out of the corner of my eye, she wants attention. I'm not giving her attention. So first thing that she's going to do is like, well, what can I chew on that's
Yep,
going to
yep.
mom
No, no,
give me
my my
attention? If you
my
can, if,
wife,
if you
my
can sit
wife,
still, you can come
yeah.
and sit with me. If you can sit still, but you can't sit still.
Eddie gets locked out of the room now, even though he's our mascot cat, because he's not able to behave during podcasts. My wife was putting together the new 22 panels ad for Santos Sisters today and decided to put the other cats into it. And that's our thing, 22 panels now with more cats. So I get it.
Yeah, I, 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 she's young and this is it. There's the parent, um, there's this whole thing where your parents say, whenever you're a miserable child, I hope you have a child like you someday. So you you know the frustration that I had to go through raising you. And she is me. She
There
is
you
hyperkinetic and she doesn't listen and she doesn't sit still and all of that. And I'm not going to say I think my parents, did an okay job, but I'm just going to say I understand their frustrations with me a little more.
go.
But no, she's lovely and I absolutely adore her, but she doesn't like to sit still. So I'm always like, if you sit still, we can do this podcast together. And she never sits still. When she was much, much younger, she would. She would just sort of like fall asleep in the crook of my arm, and it would be lovely. And she would just fall asleep, and that would be fine. But now, she's going to be 2 years old, so she's a big girl now.
The
I
cat that's
talk about
most
them like they're
attached.
human beings. Oh God. Anyway,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but yeah, it depends on the crossover. It depends on the people that you're working with because Jimmy and I are talking about, certain storylines that he's doing that I might reprieve in the book that I'm writing or little things that I have that he can, that may seem sort of like a one-off here, but if you go to Deadly Tales, you'll start to see the origin of that story. So we've been having some discussions about that. In terms of the X books, we had a Discord server for a while where if there between um, the crossovers and also if somebody was like, oh hey, I need to add a character, somebody who's not really consequential, but somebody who people will recognize, who's on the table kind of thing. um, we can always do, we'll always sort of just type that into the Discord and such. But I mean, whenever you're talking about these big shared universes, it is good to have a little bit of distance, but also to sort of be, you don't have to all sit on the same couch, but to be in the same room because you don't want
Right.
to make it where your audience has to pick up 12 books a week just to know what's going on. I don't think that's fair. Because,
Thank you for that. Because
well, I mean,
sometimes I don't know if Marvel and DC agree.
I can, I, I say very often, I'm as much of a fan as I am a professional. And I understand that, everyone, well, not everybody, but the vast majority of us have limited resources. And I understand that you want to be able to take in a story and not have to feel as if so much is being left out of it. So we wanted to be able to make the rogue story, just as an example, we wanted to be able to make the rogue story something that you could read, whether or not you're reading Uncanny. If you happen to be reading Uncanny, then this is gravy. If you're not reading Uncanny and you just like the character of Rogue, give it a read. And if you like it and you want to turn around and maybe pick up Uncanny, you can do that too. But it's not necessary. It's not required reading. Um, and what I try and do, no matter what book I work on, is sort of the gym shooter, any issue that you pick up could be your number one. And especially when it came to Gunslinger, because the first issue that I worked on Gunslinger was 54. And I'm finishing up the script for 61 right now. And for Gunslinger 54, there are people that have said, wait a minute, you mean I have to read 53 issues of Gunslinger to pick up your book? And I said, no, because that first issue, the first 3 pages tells you all you need to know about Gunslinger. He's a man from the past who was brought into our time. He's the weakest of all the Hellspawns, which means he has a chip on his shoulder. He he's very resourceful, but he tends to overestimate his abilities and he tends to underestimate his opponents. And when I was teaching writing at Kubert School, one of the things that I would say is every character that is important to the plot, to the story, to the furtherance of the adventure of the protagonist and even the antagonist as well, you have to know 4 things. You can obviously know more, but there are 4 crucial things that you need to know. You need to know somebody's name. You need to know where they're from. You need to know what they're proud of, and you need to know what they're afraid of.
Seems about right.
And if you have those 4 things, then that's just enough information for the audience to be able to then understand who they are. So he's Gunslinger. Where's he from? The 1860s. What's he proud of? He's proud of the fact that he's resourceful despite being, the weakest of all the Hellspawns. And what's he's afraid of? He's afraid that he's never going to get back to his own time.
I like it.
And those are the 4 things that you learn in those first 3 pages. And then you don't need to know anything else because as the story develops, it develops based on those things. That is your foundation. And
Right.
and to me that's very important in storytelling. That is foundational. That is just the fundamentals of storytelling.
Yeah. No. Though my autistic brain is also sitting here trying to write like Duncan of York, the knight proud of I'm just trying to put it all into one sentence in my head because I'm
Well, it's
crazy
kind of
like
like, how people talk about
that.
people always talk about like log lines and distilling an idea down to a sentence or two. It
Right.
is very difficult as a creator because you have so much that you've put into a character, into a story, into a world that just distilling it down to a sentence or two. I mean, I can't do that. How can you, this contains multitudes. How can you, distill it to a sentence? But that's the way you have to think of it because especially when you are presenting it to people,
Right.
um, especially if you're pitching something, if you're pitching any idea, even if you're pitching, like you're a teacher, if you're pitching an idea for a new class or a new lesson, you
Right.
have to make it bite-sized and manageable because you need to present this to the administrators or whomever, and you need to say, this is the name of the class. This is why it's important. This is what I think the students are going to get out of it. And this is where I need your help to make this proposal more robust, to make this class more
Right.
robust. So you
Right.
can break it down for pretty much anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that sort of shows the sort of the universality of storytelling in general.
This is why I like talking to writers. They always make me think I mean, I like talking to artists too. They make me think in different ways, but like you both fascinate me and throw me off my game when I'm sitting
Sorry.
there going, "Oh, no, no, I don't really have a game, so being thrown off of it is whatever." Um, do you have, I mean, like I know when you got to write Moon Knight, when you got to write Daredevil, those were things that you had experience, like a history in the universe. When it comes to X-Men, Spawn, Vampirella, were these titles that you had on your bucket list? Were these universes that you had spent lots of time in your life as a fan with, or were these
It
opportunities that
actually,
you got and
it's more for me, it's more of characters rather than like the worlds.
right,
I don't think I ever saw myself writing Spawn. Um, at the same time, I'm not writing Al. I'm writing
right,
uh, Javi for Gunslinger and Peter for Rat City. So I'm not writing like what people would consider Spawn because I'm not
right,
writing Al Simmons. But I think that for me, getting to play, getting the opportunity to tell a story, any story, um, is important. That's something that I
right,
have to do. It's kind of, it's my core is to tell stories. Um, and to be able to do that in a universe that is very well established, in a universe that has beloved characters is terrifying, but it's also invigorating. You know,
right.
I know that when I first started working on Spawn back in 2022, which was when I first met Thomas Healy, who's the editor-in-chief over at McFarlane, um, I know that there were people saying that I was a publicity stunt, being the first woman to ever write Spawn and such. Um, and I've had like OG Spawn heads come to me at conventions saying like, I thought you were, full of BS when they announced you and everything. And now Rat City is like my favorite book. Or, I picked up Gunslinger and like, holy crap. So walking into those universes are difficult because there's a certain amount of baggage that comes with it.
Right.
Um, and I think no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you can agree that fandom has become toxic. Or you could say probably
Odds.
fandom has always been toxic. You
There
know?
have always been corners of fandom that are very toxic.
Yeah. So the idea of going into that room and saying, hey, this is going to be something different, is scary, but at the same time, I'm an old broad from Jersey. What are you going to show me that I haven't seen? You know?
Right. I was actually thinking more from the research side. Were you already steeped in the characters and were immediately like, oh, I know what to do with this, or did you need to go read old? I mean, you talked about Nancy Collins with Vampirella. Was that something you read long before you knew you were
Yeah,
doing Vampirella, or was that okay?
I had read Nancy's Vampirella like years and years and years ago.
Right.
So I had read Spawn when it was first coming out, and I had read probably about 75 issues. In the past couple of years, I have the compendiums, and I've read probably up like 225 and
Okay.
everything. And they're going close to 400, so obviously that's not the entirety of it. But
Hey, it's 200 more issues than I've read of Spawn.
with Rat City, though, we didn't. The point of Rat City was that you could read Rat City having never read regular Spawn, having never read King Spawn, having never read Scorched. Um,
And I can completely attest to the fact that that is 100% true because I barely remembered any of my regular Spawn. I went, oh, Erica Schultz. Wait, it's a Spawn book. I'm just gonna dive in. It worked.
but
I
that
liked
that was
it.
the point. So for when it comes to continuity and things like that, we didn't really have that for Rat City because Jay and I were we were the jumping off point.
Right.
With Gunslinger, there were 49 issues out already. And I read all 49 issues and I took notes on all 49 issues. And I took notes on all the issues of Deadly Tales. And I had written, I don't know, I had written probably 3 or 4 issues before I saw the last issue that was coming out before 54. And I was like, oh, there's a couple of continuity errors. Well, that's why God invented dialogue balloons. So let's put those up right now. So I tend to research and read what I can of a character, if for no other reason than to get their voice. Um, but I'm pretty well versed in these characters anyway. And when it comes to something like Vampirella doing like a one shot like this, um, Vampirella has had, long stretches, like we were talking about Christopher Priest writing the character. Vampirella's had long stretches, but also there have been these moments where it's just sort of she just dips in and out of time. And when I was speaking with the editor about it, um, he basically said this is a story that can live anywhere. It can live anywhere on her timeline. Uh, so that gave us a huge amount of freedom to sort of just have fun with it. I mean, it's
I,
comics. You're supposed to have fun with it.
I would hope. That's why I read them. I mean, not the only reason I read them, because I feel like I learn a lot from them too. But fun was the thing that brought me to them first.
Yeah.
You hit on it a little bit, but I'm gonna ask you to expand a little bit. When you're doing your reading of older material, um, are like I get reading for continuity, but I've always kind of looked at that as like to one level, that's what the editor's for. How much are you reading for the voice of the character, for the mood of the world? What specific things are you kind of looking for to get yourself into the mindset of whatever you're writing?
The voice of the character is very, very important because I think it's very easy for I think it's easy for another writer to come in and change the voice of the character, and then everybody's kind of like, what? And it kind of pulls you out. And continuity is important to me. And I know that like everybody's like, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, comics, comics, comics. But I think continuity is important.
I mean, I don't know. Some of those fans we're talking about before are very much not like that. They're like in issue 42 in
Well, I mean,
1961.
but that's the thing is I've been that fan and it's,
Okay.
I've, I was, there are characters in Gunslinger and Todd was writing Gunslinger prior to me taking the writing manual. There were characters in Gunslinger that dipped in for a page and for a an issue and then disappeared. So I had made notes of all these different characters that were sort of like hanging chads. And I said, what was the plan for this character? What was the plan for that? And we were on a call, and he was just like, "You give me too much credit." He goes, "Listen, this is the way I do it. I think of something cool that I want to draw, and I draw it, and then I think of something else cool that I want to draw, and I draw that, and then I find a way to make it all work together, and then I draw the boring bits." Because there were a couple of characters, like there was one character in issue 26, and then there was another character in 47, and I was like, "Well, what are your plans for these? And what about this? And what about that?" And he's just like,
What do you want to do?
"Yeah, well, that's basically what it was." Because I was like, "Well, there's this character that you brought in, and they have a child, and the child seems really important." And he's like, "Whatever." He's like, "What do you see happening?" I was like, "Well, you could do blah, blah, blah." He's like, "Yeah, sounds good."
This is reminding me of their in Claremont's run on X-Men. There was like this mysterious black helicopter or something like that that popped up in like 6 or 7 issues, and but they never figured out what they wanted to do with it. So then it just vanished. It was the
Yeah,
seed
I
that they
mean,
had planted, but then nothing grew.
yeah, and that's the thing is like because I try and tell a contained story, um, the things from like the person that I'm talking about from issue 26 or the person that I'm talking about from issue 20, 47, um, I can turn around and I can tell the contained story. And because they don't have any backstory, really,
Right. Right.
the backstory is in the present. If you
Right.
want to turn around and go back to issue and read issues, 1 through 26, go for it. If you just want to read
Right.
issue 26, then you will see that this character was introduced with no with no preamble. Just here's
Right.
a person, they happen to have a kid, and stuff happens.
This is one of the things that I like. I go back and forth on how much I like shared universes just because I am not a continuity guy, but I have the gene for it. Like the biggest reason I'm not a continuity guy is like I don't want to spend the next 6 months mapping out the entire Marvel universe. And if I let myself start, I might not stop. You know.
I
But
used to
then
be
there's
a completionist, but now I'm
right.
just like, who's got time for that?
Exactly, exactly. But then there's things like, the original 11-page Spider-Man story that Stan Lee and Steve Ditko did. At this point, every single character that's in that at all has at least a single issue about them.
Yeah.
You've seen the story from every different imaginable angle.
Yeah, it turns into the original Rashomon kind of thing.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And that part of the huge universes I love. The ability to go, oh, that kid that looked up and pointed at Spider-Man, and then his mom said he was silly. Let's tell a story from his point of view,
Yeah.
which they did.
I mean, I
His
I was fortunate enough to be part of Spider-Man Black Suit and Blood, and one of the things that it was weird, it's like I had just done a signing or something at the Marvel booth, and one of the editors came up to me after the signing and he was like, "Hey, I was wondering if you wanted to do this and blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Yeah, it would be cool to do a story in that time." I mean, there's been Venom stories, obviously, but no one told the story from Venom's perspective when Spidey first got the suit.
I totally forgot that story. Oh, that was so good.
And so he's like, "Huh, yeah, I never thought about it that way." And so, so telling that story is, Spidey just gets back from Secret Wars. He has the black suit, and there was a whole thing when Spidey first came back from Secret Wars because there was a publishing issue where the last one or two issues of Secret Wars didn't come out yet, and they had to go back to ASM, and ASM has him in the black suit. And so there was this weird thing of like people not recognizing Spidey because he's in the black suit. So we have that story of, the black suit. You see Peter in the suit doing X, Y, and Z, but then we have this sort of like moment of the suit being like, I'm in a strange place. I'm in a different place. I don't understand where I am. And feeding off of the anger and the energy of Peter. And then you sort of start to see how that is now influencing Peter, throughout. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Venom's been told 8 ways to Sunday, but just in that moment, in that time
Right.
period, on that timeline, nobody said anything about Venom. It was more or less not a sentient thing. So,
That actually leads me to one of the things that I've loved in comics in general lately, um, is the resurrection of anthology books, where we seem to have a lot more um, books coming out with a series of short stories from different perspectives and not as tied to anything, or like the EC resurrection over at Oni and Boom's got Hello Darkness, just a lot of anthology type books. Um, you've gotten to participate in a number of the Marvel ones. What's it like to have to come up with this like way shorter story? Um,
Um, well, I mean, that's part of the challenge is,
yeah,
and one of the things that I always tell people who are new writers or they want to get into writing is I say, look at anthologies because telling a story in 5, 8, 10 pages is a lot more difficult than, you have to really get to the meat of it. Um, and I mean, it's all the same thing of, your opening, you build up, you have your high moment kind of thing, and then your denouement. I mean, it's all the same, storytelling, but it's a matter of how many pages do you have for your setup? How many pages do you have for your real, like, I mean, it's superhero comics, so the banging the action figures together. Um, I would say out of all the ones that I've done, because I've done quite a few of the Marvel anthologies, the Black, White, and Blood, the Black Suit and Blood, the Black, White, and Red, because you can't say blood in Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Um, I would say that my favorites had to be the Marvel Zombies, where I
Okay.
finally got to write Beta Ray Bill, who's one of my favorite characters,
Okay.
and um, the Eisner Award nominated Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood because I have a soft spot for Jake Lockley. And my dad drove a cab in New York City in the early 80s.
Okay.
So I have a soft spot for Jake. And as of more recently, I would say in the last like 7 years, give or take, for whatever reason, whether it was editorial, creative, whatever, but they turned Jake into this like crazy psychopath. And that never that never worked with me because Jake was just he's a bruiser, but
Right.
he's also somebody, I mean, historically, but he's also somebody who really gets along with people well because Jake is a man of the people and he gets information, he gets intel. The way I always saw Moon Knight's three human personalities was you had Stephen who bankrolled things. He was the face, he was the debonair, and he was the wallet. You had Jake who would hang out at Gina's diner, who would talk to people, he would listen. Um, he was a man of the people, and he was very personable because that's how he got information. And once he received that information, then Mark and or Moon Knight would be the one who would then act on that intel. And that's kind of how I saw it. Or you could see them all getting intel in their own way. Jake being amongst the people, Stephen being amongst the other people and paying people off to get information. And then you had
Right.
Mark, who's the one who's bugging your house.
Right.
Or, so I wanted to get back to Jake um being a regular guy, but who could still, kick ass. And David Lopez, when he was originally drawing it, it was around the time. that I don't know if the Moon Knight TV show had come out yet, but it was definitely we knew the
It
cast.
was right in there. Right.
And originally David had drawn Mark to look very much like Oscar Isaac.
Okay.
And we were told, no, 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 you can't do that. Um, but he turned it around and I was like, you draw a very handsome Jake, you know? So I had a lot of fun with that simply because I got to play with Jake. Whereas all the other
Okay.
Moon Knight stories that I've written, um, have been Mark or focused on Marlene and Frenchie or or focused on Max Coleridge, the Shroud, coming into the Moon Knight mantle. So it was fun to be able to focus on, a short story, but a fun story to show that, Jake is like, oh, I'm just this dumb cabbie. I don't know what I'm talking about. And meanwhile, he's absorbing everything that these people are saying and understanding exactly what he has to do.
I like it.
Before I get to wrap up questions, what are you looking forward to in the next year? I mean, you seem to have all sorts of things on your plate. So what that you're
Yeah.
allowed to talk about are you most excited about right now?
So, Vampirella Witchblade is another one shot that is coming out in September, I believe. And Marguerite Bennett, who is
Well, I
writing.
can tell you right now that will be the first Witchblade comic that I ever read.
Well, Marguerite Bennett is doing Witchblade now, the ongoing.
Okay.
Marguerite's going to be doing Witchblade Vampirella, and then I'm going to be doing Vampirella Witchblade.
Okay.
Valentina Pinti is doing the artwork, and Sean Mandrake is going to be coloring it. And Valentina and I worked together on Daredevil Unleash Hell and Laura Kinney, um, Sabretooth. So it's good to be back with Valentina. And so that's going to come out in September. Also in September is Sword in the Stone. It's a Disney graphic novel coming out from Mad Cave. Uh,
Nice.
in late October, we're going to have the trade paperback for Rogue is coming out. Gunslinger will hopefully continue. Hopefully, it won't get fired off of that. Um, and I
That
got a
doesn't seem likely.
knocking on wood right now. And I got a bunch of conventions. August, I'll be at Terrificon in August and Fan Expo Chicago.
Cool.
September, I will be at Fan Expo Dallas and Baltimore Comic Con. October, I will be at Wicked Con in Boston and GalaxyCon St. Louis. And November, I will be at HowlCon in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
So you're skipping New York Comic Con?
I'm skipping New York Comic Con.
Okay.
I've made statements about it on social media, but long story short, ReedPop has a contract,
Gotcha.
Department of Homeland Security and ICE, and I don't agree with that, so I am not going to be participating in
In
reaches.
Reed Popper right now.
Yeah.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Um, and completely fair. Uh, so my closing questions that I have cultivated over time, one of them new. Um, I feel like I fell into the twilight zone when I started this podcast because the number of cool conversations I get to have, the people that I meet, the people that become my friends, the things that I get to do are just like if you told 15-year-old me reading comics that like some of the names that were just names on a page of things that I loved were going to be friends or people that I hung out with or whatever, I would told you you're fucking bonkers. That's that simple. I would just told you you're fucking bonkers. But I find that like everybody in comics, everybody in artistic careers in general seem to have similar stories, the things that they got to do that like even now that they're veterans, they sit back and they go, was that really me in that room? Did I get to do that? Did I get asked to do that? Did I have somebody come up and say that to me? Whatever. So I started collecting those stories. Tell me one of your pinch me moments from your time in comics.
Probably meeting Bill Sienkiewicz and him turning into a friend and a colleague and someone who has been a huge cheerleader for me. Um, Bill's place in comic book history is undeniable, not
Right.
only with his art, but storytelling in general.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
Stray Toasters, if you haven't read it, is
I
just
love Stray Toasters.
it's brilliant.
Actually, it's funny. I have Bill's Jimi Hendrix on my sweatshirt right here.
Again. Um, so I
Ma-
mean, Bill is
Marry a printmaker. You can get as many bootleg sweatshirts as you want.
there you go. So, uh, hanging out with Bill and people then coming up to me and saying that meeting Bill is their goal, and me taking them over to meet Bill and seeing that pinch me moment from their eyes as well. Um, I saw Bill at San Diego. I mean, I saw him in New York last year, but I also saw him at San Diego probably a year or two ago. And he said to me, um, I might get choked up saying this, but he's like, I'm so proud of you. You set out to do this and you did it. And because I've known Bill since like 2010, I've known him for a long time. And he said, you set out to do this and you did it. And, you know, I, I, I think it's wonderful. I think it's beautiful. I'm so proud of you. I love you. And I'm just like, I love you too, Bill. But yeah, like being colleagues and friends with people who I admire their work so much. And I know people say don't meet your heroes, etc.
It's so great when they don't let you down, though.
No, and they absolutely don't. And
Right.
no matter where I am in my career, knowing that I mean, there's tons of people who've been cheerleaders for me, and I thank all of them. But knowing someone of his caliber and someone of like his, I hate to use the word status, but I mean, there's really
How about stature?
stature. Thank you.
It
Um,
feels more earned.
yeah, well, I mean, he certainly earned it.
And he has. He
Yeah.
has. No, I've
Um,
only gotten to meet him once, but there was an exhibit of his stuff at like the local Libertyville History Museum
mhm.
because because Alex Ross lives nearby too. So he'd done his exhibit and they were able to go through Alex to get Bill's exhibit.
Yeah.
That I like, it was between school and home. So like I stopped and walked through 3 times a week for the entire time that it was there.
And it just, I mean, it makes your head explode. The
It
the
does.
the talent, the skill, and the evolution
Mhm.
of him as a creator. But yeah, I mean, I think a pinch me moment was probably meeting Bill and having the the verbal encouragement, the phone calls, the emails, the texts, continually encouraging me. Because one of the things that you will find in this industry, in any creative industry, is it will test you, and you're going to hear more no than you hear yes. And having
Or
that
not here at
encouragement.
all.
Well, yeah, well, that's the other one. But having the encouragement from someone who not only has worked through the no's to the yeses, but someone who had faith in you and wants to help you on your journey and wants to, support you emotionally and everything. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. No, I know that feeling. It's just so weird when you suddenly start thinking of people that were heroes as my friend so and so rather than, and when you described the getting to introduce people to Bill, I immediately like the C2E2 this year, was the first time that I was like a pro there. I had panels and whatnot, and therefore I wound up in a situation where I was introducing people to their heroes. I'm like, oh, that was what it was like when I got to do that. That's so
You
I
feel like
totally
you're stewarding.
ridiculously relate.
Yeah,
Right,
you feel like a steward of creativity, of just art in general. And I think art is
right,
something that is so important. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I do a lot of other things, like I sew, I upcycle stuff, I make, all kinds of stuff. And I had said to him, hey, like, let me know if I'm making a bunch of purses right now. And I was like, oh, let me know if, your daughter wants one of these. And he's like, that's very generous of you. He's like, you put a lot of yourself into it. And I said, yeah, but art needs to be seen.
right,
Art needs to be seen by whether it's a random person or someone close to you. Art needs to be seen because the purpose of art is to uh, uh, invigorate something in someone, whether it's hate, love, whatever. But the
right,
purpose is for it to be seen, is for it to be experienced, you know?
right,
So,
right. All right. Closing question. Tell me something you love, preferably a comic, but we don't really have rules. Preferably storytelling, but again with the rules, but something that you love and not enough people around you have experienced it, and you really want them to so that you have more people to talk about it with.
what do I love? I mean, I tend to go back to like the first trade of Hellboy, Seed of Destruction. I mean, with BPRD and hell, I mean, there's been so many Hellboy comics since then. But going back to the original and seeing I mean, first of all, the art itself is so damn expressive.
Oh yeah.
The style and everything Mignola, was doing. And I think with the first one, I think John Byrne might be credited
He,
with like the script, I
I
think.
think he wrote the script for like issue one, maybe the
Somebody
first couple
he's
of issues. Yeah,
credited.
he was helping.
Yeah, and when you have it as a trade, there's these sort of like preamble, um, almost poetry kind of, almost like poetry slash journal
Right,
entry kind of thing that you get. And I think he may have
right,
written this for the rest of them.
right,
But really seeing the inception of that character or those characters, Abe
right,
and Liz, obviously, and Broom, and seeing them sort of blossom and know ahead of time what they became,
right.
I think is inspiring.
Yeah,
Uh, so I genuinely like to just go back to that, just in general, to be like, you know, things can start small.
yeah.
When I
I
was
think it.
really little, I had a t-shirt. I was probably a toddler, and my parents got me a t-shirt that said "Dynamite comes in small packages."
Speaking of t-shirts, I meant to thank you on the air for wearing the Enough t-shirt at San Diego
Oh,
Comic-Con way
yeah.
back when. Um,
I was
we,
at
we still need more
the
enough.
signing. I wore it for the signing.
What?
I wore it
You
for a signing.
more for the signing? Yeah, thank you very much. I wish we could convince the Supreme Court that enough is enough.
I wish
But
we
that's a
could
whole
convince a whole lot of people of a lot of things.
but that's a whole other thing. Erica, it is always a pleasure. Hopefully we can do this every couple of years or so. I know that you're always really busy, but I really enjoy talking to you. So for 22 panels, this has been Erica Schultz, and we will see you after the next page.